Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live 262. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 26th of the 17th year of our Lord 2023, and it's a Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we talk Tobago because I am streaming live from this beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, our country isn't Trinidad, our country isn't Tobago, it's Trinidad and Tobago, a unified state. And on Wednesday we devoted to talking about the affairs of the sister isle Tobago, that side of the unitary state of Trinidad and Tobago. So if you're inside of the live, hit that like button. If you are looking at this over on Instagram, on TikTok, or on YouTube, double tap that screen over there on TikTok. If you're looking at this even on repeat over on YouTube, do hit that like button. It really does help. If you have something to say, do say it in the algorithm, in the comments. It does help the algorithm, and I do read those comments, just so you know. You're not commenting in vain over there. I read all of those comments. So yeah, you can drop a comment if you have something to say. As usual, this is brought to you by Mindful Education. You can head over to Instagram and follow us over there, Mindful with 2Ls_education. That's the educational institution that I run, and we offer learning pods and private tuition for most CXC and CAPE subjects. If you're interested in that, you could head over there. But we're talking Tobago tonight. News coming out of Tobago. Listen, there seems to be a movie in the making over in our sister isle. Last week there was some drama on allegations. A reported whistleblower came forward with some really damning allegations about members in the top echelons of our society being involved in some serious corruption. And the story has thickened. Gunmen tried to kill me. What's going on over there? Gunmen tried to kill me. Whistleblower Akil in hiding fears for his life. Whistleblower Akil Abdullah, who alleged being bribed to destroy and embarrass Tobago House of Assembly Chief Secretary Fali Augustine, and his administration claims gunmen tried to kill him on Sunday night. Nisi, I see you over on Instagram too. Nice. In a telephone interview with The Express yesterday, Abdullah said if he had not escaped through some bushes close to where he was staying, he would have been dead. Abdullah said he reported the attack to police. The police knows there is a report. I just say that, he told The Express. Abdullah said he is now in hiding and trusted no one, not even police. The Express was unable to reach the head of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Tobago Division, yesterday to confirm whether police received the report of the claimed attack. Deputy Commissioner of Police Intelligence and Investigation, DCP Kurt Simon, however, said he was not aware of the report, but this did not mean that the report was not made. At his special sitting of the THA last Wednesday, Augustine played a series of videos he said he had secretly recorded of Abdullah confessing to being part of a plot to destroy and embarrass him and his administration. He identified Abdullah as a whistleblower in the ongoing police probe into a leaked audio recording in which Mr. Augustine is heard discussing using THA funds to pay people to spread political propaganda. In one of the videos Augustine played at the sitting, Abdullah, a former PDP officer, alleged being paid $270,000. Cardell said he's becoming a nuisance now in his stoops. Are you saying you don't believe the man's story? Abdullah told The Express last week that Augustine's statement was not entirely true, and he would issue a media release soon, which never came. And that's the thing. He was the one who said, after Mr. Fali Augustine came public with this, he was the one who said, I am going to release a statement on this very soon. He told that to the media houses, and then he released no such statement. Okay, so then what would you know? The media house decided to call him back. they returned the call. They said it here. The Express reached out to Abdullah yesterday for further comment on the videotapes, but he said he did not want to speak on it. Interesting. What I can tell you is that just last night the gunmen attacked me. But luckily, if it wasn't for nearby bushes where I ran through, that made it very difficult for them to see me running through it and try to evade them, I would have been a dead man, he said. Now, listen. I don't know. Maybe it is 100% true. But if it is 100% true, that sounds like a little... It sounds kind of like a change on the modus operandi of the gunmen in Trinidad and Tobago by and large. I am a Trini. I have been... You should start screenwriting, so gripping wide letter says. I have a Trini. I've been looking at the news. I've seen some of the surveillance footage, some of the camera footage of shootings that have happened in Trinidad and Tobago. Shootings are a relatively regular thing in this here country. His story does not seem to add up with how the gunmen do their thing in Trinidad and Tobago. It sounds like, you know, the picture I see painted is a spy movie where, you know, it's black ops special trained unit, and they're going in there with silenced weapons and in their black clothing, in their full fatigue wear, and trying to make it a silent thing where they assassinate him in his bed. And he heard them when they came in through the window, and he jumped out through his bedroom window and fled through the bushes, and they opened the door and they saw him and they were like, "Drats, we don't want to make a scene. Let's go to the exfiltration site." And they left him. But that's not how Trini gunmen generally go. When you hear a hired killing in Trinidad and Tobago, it's the riflemen come from outside and they start the shooting from outside. And they don't stop shooting till they see you. So if perchance you indeed did run through the bush, that bush would have been a crime scene with dozens of spent shells. Are you saying gunmen came to gun you down in Trinidad and they didn't fire one waste round self? That doesn't sound like the Trini gunmen. Does that sound like the Trini gunmen? Rome, you tell me, does that sound like the Trini gunmen, you know?
That sounds like somebody gunmen that he and Bali put together. I just want to say a couple. I just want to say a couple of things because we're gonna go into this and we're gonna go into this in a real deep way pretty soon.
Yeah.
Because it's a shame what the people of Tobago house has become, because it has always been a people of respect. It has always been a house of integrity. It has, regardless of who is sitting in the office. And what Fali has done, it's a complete embarrassment to the people of Tobago, and it's shameful based on, because they are very pro, and it's very disgusting that Tobago has become nothing but a shit pool.
You know, the thing is, Room, some blame might go to Fali, but Fali still has support from Tobagonians. Not all Tobagonians, maybe not Tobagonians in general, but there are still numerous Tobagonians that vocally, publicly support him. You see, to me, that's I really despise seeing those things. Like, I could still understand if you hold, I said this since last week, I could understand if you hold it in your mind that Fali is still a better choice than the PNM. The PNM personally kick your dog and poison your cat and you hate them forever for that. Okay, understood. You could say he's the better choice. Nothing is wrong with that stance if you attempt to make that. But to try to say that what he is doing and saying now adds up and makes sense, and he is the right one in this, and we stand behind you 100%, Mr. Like, have we no shame? This is a kind of story, and if you look at the intelligentsia, at the intellectuals who were his supporters earlier on, none of them are vocally supporting this right now. Because you see, this is something, even if it is true, even if, as far out as it sounds, even if the whistleblower was offered hundreds of thousands of dollars personally by Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, who made a phone call to the Commissioner of Police in the presence of a PDP activist and officer in attempt to plan to scheme up a plan to get rid of the THA Chief Secretary. Okay, if all of that is true, and the gunmen really came for the man and he fled through the bush, all of that is true. If you are a smart person, if you are a thinking person, this is the kind of thing you say, you know what? I'll wait till the conclusion is drawn from this, and then I will see if I want to put my vocal support behind this. Because the story doesn't pass the obvious sniff test. Like, at the face of it, the story just sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of the nature of politics in Trinidad and Tobago, and there is benefit to some of that. Kamla, place Abdullah in witness protection. Opposition leader Kamla Prasad Visasa says whistleblower Akil Abdullah must be placed in witness protection immediately if there is truth to the report that gunmen tried to kill him. At a special sitting, we know that Abdullah claimed he was offered hundreds of thousands. He also told the Express that people were trying to kill him and all of that. In a statement yesterday, Prasad Visasa urged citizens to take the report seriously. The opposition is urging us to take this report seriously, you know. Okay. Bring Abdullah into witness. Yeah, room.
My thing with the opposition, right? She's trying to appeal to. And I believe it's not the intelligence part of society. It's a group of people that, for example, Tobago has been nothing but a sacrificial lamb. What do I mean by that? Is because they have a particular hatred for the Prime Minister, they have sacrificed all their institutions, all their integrity, all their honor, and all their at any means necessary. And so all your institutions that had some form of faith in or some form of belief has been completely destroyed. Because Bali is the head of Tobago. When you have someone destroy your institutions or the contract that you agreed on in terms of how someone should represent themselves in the House of Sitting, what are the rules? What are the standing orders? What is considered the Westminster system? This has been the worst abuse of the Westminster system that ever exists, and it happened under the watch of Trinidad and Tobago. And yet still, we have people who give themselves silk, speaking foolishness when they know, when they say choose to hold up, there's the principle of evidence and integrity and good governance. Even if you disagree, you can want to call it only nasty, dirty thinking, it has nothing to do with it. But when you destroy your own principles for the sake of power, you're worse than a demon.
But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you in terms of destroying your principles, because as we stated, that could have been 2 weeks ago. Principles. When you have something based on principles, then you could go out into the dark. You can make a decision on something new, on something novel, because there's a principle that you are sat behind. When you destroy your principles, there's nothing you could base your decision making on. And if you destroy your principles in pursuit of a person, then that person is the principle. That is the principal person, and that is literally how you get authoritarian governors. Or government, and that's scary. Listening to this though, further on what the opposition was asking for, she said if the report was true, the police and the DPP should bring Abdullah into witness protection. Reveal if the TTPS has been instructed to use the audio clip investigation as a Trojan horse to really find out what evidence the current THA has on the allegations against Warner Construction. Investigate the alleged blackmail and extortion of Farley by contractor Keon Warner. Investigate Abdullah's allegation that he was offered 270,000, of which 70,000 has already been paid. In other words, she's saying investigate the whole thing. But the strange thing is, Augustine yet to file misconduct complaint. THA whistleblower still mum. This was an article, I believe, from about 3 days ago, but I don't think he has filed the complaint still, as of now. THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine has not filed any complaints regarding the misconduct of police officers in Tobago, according to both the Police Complaints Authority and the TTPS Professional Standards Bureau. During a THA special plenary sitting, we know of these accusations, and the thing is, at the end of this presentation, reading on some more, Augustine said, I have since given my attorney instructions to write to the Commissioner of Police, the Director of the Police Complaints Authority, the President of the Republic, the DPP, and all other agencies responsible for carrying out justice in this country. That letter has already been drafted, and it says, firstly, please be advised that my client has in his possession evidence which has covered the subject of and also protected by legal privileges. That statement given to the police used in the procurement of these warrants were obtained through bribery, etc., etc., etc. The strange thing is, none of these agencies have received this letter yet. So the accusation that Mr. Augustine made, so far, it seems like it has only been made inside of the Tobago house. If you are serious about these allegations, these things don't magically go away. If you want something to come of this, you are an elected government official. Don't you lodge a complaint here, write a letter there, make a paper trail so that there's evidence that you did tell this one about XYZ? How could you say that this horrible thing is happening? We demand an investigation. Have you written to the people who are in charge of investigating? If you haven't written to them, what do you expect? Do you want just that the police are to look at your video that you showed during a sitting and they're supposed to launch an investigation based on that? Do you think that's how police work happens? What is expected to come of this? Mrs. Prasad Visesa is demanding investigations into this and into that and into the other. But how are these investigations going to happen if the Chief Secretary, who is saying the plot is against him, he hasn't made a formal complaint? If the whistleblower, who says he has all of the evidence, hasn't made a complaint either? Who is the complainant? Who is making the accusations? If you want to make the accusations, go to the police, make the accusations, make it clear, and let them investigate it. That's how you make accusations if you believe they are right. If you go to the house where you have privilege and just throw the tata on the fan and let it spray across the country, but do nothing substantive to do anything about it, then I am starting to wonder if all you had was the tata in the first place. All you had was the manual. That's why you just wanted the manual to spray about on the fan and spread across the entire country. But there was nothing concrete inside there. It was only soft serve manual. That's the one I have. And as Rome was talking about there, with the breaking of principles, ex-presiding officer on THA special sitting, members cannot do as they please. Former THA presiding officer Dr. Denise Sawyer-Fat Angus says last Wednesday's special sitting of the House, in which the Chief Secretary made serious allegations of high-ranking police government and police officials, was flawed in its execution. Sawyer-Fat Angus added that if the content of the videos played during the sitting pointed to a criminal act of obstruction of justice, the Chief Secretary, the presiding officer, and the leader of assembly business might be charged as co-conspirators. Say what? And you see, this is the problem when you think you could just do anything you want. I looked at that sitting. I watched that sitting, and I saw the behavior of the presiding officer there. And I remember even Wade Mack, when he was the Speaker of the House, he is as loyal of a UNC acolyte as you can get. Wade Mack is loyal to the UNC. He shows his loyalty, and you could see his loyalty in that even as leaders switched, Wade Mack was always right there at the top. But even Wade Mack be coming out of the depths of UNC when he was the Speaker of the House, even him attempted to, have at least the air of neutrality. Honorable members of the House, I will ask that you respect the standing orders. And, even him attempted to look a little bit neutral. But then, watching that sitting, there wasn't even an attempt to feign neutrality. The presiding officer spoke as though she was fully sitting on the side and standing with the chief secretary and that side of the House. That's not really how it's supposed to function. And if you think because there's some level of privilege that you could enter the House and commit criminal acts and you would be given a free pardon for it, well, you might find out that is not necessarily true. She also said while she supported calls in some quarters for mediation between Rowley and Augustine, there have to be distinct lines of mediating relationships to maintain the operations of the Assembly versus alleged criminal acts that are being investigated at various levels. So if Angus was referring to the investigation being carried out by the Police and Integrity Commission.
But Nathan,
yes.
I want to add one thing.
Yes.
While the house have privilege and it gives you to speak, it did not come in a substantive order, or it did not come in a private order of personal business. So whatever he bring, it is subject, as long as the right report is made and it's being made to come before the judiciary, because it did not come under any standing order that exists in the Westminster system. And people don't understand that. When you bring in a motion, it either come under government substantive business or a standing order of personal explanation. And the speaker must acknowledge the standing order to give it privilege. So she and all are contrary to the privilege that is given in the House.
Well, she might have to pay consequences for it. Going back to what Rowley said about the criminal nature of this, and bear in mind, Dr. Rowley might not just be talking out of his behind here. He is married to a senior lawyer in Trinidad and Tobago who has been a lawyer for quite some time. So I suppose he would be getting some free legal advice relatively regularly. Rowley speaking at a press conference at the Diplomatic Center, he was saying, eventually, I was jolted into ongoing shock as I am now when the Chief Secretary produced the voice recordings of a stranger who was now given the floor of the Assembly to make statements and carrying alongside the statements what you call the script on the screen being published to the world. Completely shocking and surprising to me as a parliamentarian and who has some knowledge of the laws governing parliamentary practice. And then, shock of all shocks, this person was invited to question whether the Prime Minister was involved in the conspiracy that the Chief Secretary was bearing down on in the Assembly. The person then admitted in the affirmative that the Prime Minister was involved in this matter. You could imagine my consternation. The person then went on prompting to answer that he met with the Prime Minister, me, on 2 occasions, and immediately 2 questions immediately arose, but were not asked. One is where and the other is when. Those 2 questions were not asked. And then the person went on to say that they saw a meeting, and the Prime Minister was involved with other people, one of whom is a senior counsel, and of course the PNM leader in Tobago. And of course, shock above shock, that in the meeting, which obviously was called for criminal conduct, the Prime Minister and his presence got on the phone, etc., etc., etc. So this person outlaid an illegal activity that he was a part of. Which is using the police service to conduct investigations, terrorize, etc., etc. He said the chief secretary then confirmed somewhere during the proceedings that the police had been conducting some executional warrants in Tobago and had in fact had reasons to visit him and some of his colleagues and other persons known to him. He's just going through everything that was said. I'm trying to get where he spoke about exactly the nature of the crime that he saw there, because basically by outlining the conspiracy there, Mr. Abdullah outlined that he was a participant in this criminal act. He confessed to this act basically, and then by the chief secretary bringing it into the assembly, he made the assembly party to this while withholding this evidence from the police, and according to his own confession, withholding it since the beginning of this month.
I think what two things is two things that some friends of mine who's lawyer, he said the testimony number one was suborned, meaning that you cannot be the bearer, the executioner, and the judge. So that's one. And the other major thing is witness tampering and interfering with a formal investigation, as well as conspiracy. And then when it comes to Rowley, he actually made charges tantamount to treason. Right? So it's gonna be a very interesting September. And
it is,
because the parliament is on recess now. So there has not been any major how to put it, because people forget, right? I just want to state one thing before we start speaking. People forgetting that the Tobago House of Assembly it have a little more authority than a borough corporation. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So when that foolishness that Fally trying to state that he have power and he could enact, you have authority through the THA Act that gives you a little more authority than a borough corporation. So it is very disheartening. It's almost as disheartening as seeing Gary Griffith speaking to the Prime Minister in a certain type of way when you serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister.
Yeah. And you know, as I was reading the Prime Minister's statement there, when you think about what the Chief Secretary did there, he didn't come to the House and say in his own words the testimony that was given to him. He basically brought a stranger into the assembly and gave that stranger free rein to possibly slander and defame the Prime Minister of the country, while not getting permission from the presiding officer to do so. I think not only may they be in trouble, I think he may have put Mr. Abdullah in some trouble there. No wonder Mr. Abdullah is saying right now gunmen are looking for him. I'm not sure about that gunman story, but I think the authorities may have some things that they would like to speak to him about. If he is admitting, if he is willing to see and stand up and say that all in that video was true, good luck there. But Mr. Fally went on even further than that. He said, read the THA Act again. This was recently, I believe, yesterday or something like that. Fally, PM doesn't know what he's talking about in suggesting I overstepped. Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly says Prime Minister Keith Rowley does not know what he's talking about by suggesting he overstepped. Advising Rowley to reread the THA Act, Fally said on Monday night, I will advise the minority leader to give him a copy of the standing orders of the THA and he will see that it is proper and in order. order. So he needs to read the act again. If he reads the act, he will see in section 70 of the act the privileges listed out for members of the THA, and not just members, but anyone who participates even in a committee of the THA, Augustine said. And if you read Standing Orders 9 for the THA, you will see the powers of the presiding officer that gives authority in areas where the standing orders is silent to make a decision, and that decision stands as per her decision. Here's the thing. I don't think that the standing orders of the parliament or the assembly was structured in such a way to allow a member to bring in a stranger and give libelous testimony. I do not think the standing orders would be structured in such a way. He spoke of the privileges granted to the members. Okay, those are privileges granted to the members. This is still a bit more unique. I would like to see this go to court to see what judges would say, what the law says on this, because this is very interesting. A non-parliamentary member made this statement outside of the assembly, not protected by those provisions. You brought his statement, not in your words, in his words, in video form, inside of the house, without it being previously seen, recognized, and vetted. An unvetted piece of video. So that seems to me, that seems tantamount like on a given Wednesday, he just brought in this random guy and tell him, here, stand at my mic and tell me what you're going to see. And this guy goes on for a half-hour diatribe of slanderous words against high-ranking officials. Do you think that the standing orders would recognize something like that? Do you think they would protect something like that? Room, go ahead, yeah.
The standing orders refer to any unelected member as a stranger for a reason. Right? If you ever been to any parliament in the Western Hemisphere, because I've had the opportunity to work in youth parliament throughout the Caribbean, and if you even laugh or communicate too loud, you are removed because you are a stranger observing the parliament, right? And when you say committee, if the parliament elects a committee and give them special privilege in order to investigate something that there is no expertise in the parliament, then the speaker has the authority to bring that person before the parliament, and the person is prepared a written statement. The person do not ad lib. So that when it hit the record, it is recorded as a written statement coming from an expert. But in a state, the speaker cannot, under no privilege that exists based on history in the Western Hemisphere. When I'm talking in the Western Hemisphere, I'm talking Canada, Australia, England, wherever the Westminster system exists. Bring a stranger into the parliament and give them privilege of an elected member.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Farley said, though, the House was the rightful place. Responding to Rowley's comments, Augustine said on Monday, I could say without fear of contradiction that the Prime Minister does not know what he's talking about. Augustine said in the same way Rowley revealed Emailgate in the safe space of the Parliament, he presented information from the whistleblower at last week's special THA sitting. Now, here again, it's not in the same way as Emailgate. Rowley stood up and with his own words made a presentation on that. You could have your views on the whole Emailgate fiasco, whatever views you may hold, okay? But it was not one and the same. Rowley didn't get this as a video confession of Emailgate from some outsider and then play that in the Parliament. He stood up and made the presentation himself. So actually it was not the same thing. He insisted the THA legislature shared similar privileges to the Parliament in Trinidad, and the Assembly Chamber was the rightful place to take the information during his 75-minute long interview. Now, again, I don't know if that would be the rightful place, even if comparing this to Emailgate. Because Emailgate would have been an accusation against the sitting members opposite you.
Exactly.
This was not against the minority leader. This was against someone who does not sit in the same house with you, who does not have the ability to answer that in the same assembly with you. So it's not the same. There are lots of intersections that make this pretty different from Emailgate, pretty significantly different. And the Attorney General is investigating to see if the Constitution was broken. So I presume something would come of this in the end. Number one, I had not heard. Augustine said when the whistleblower came to him on July 7th and 12th, he initially disregarded the information. However, two intersections led him to believe there was some validity to it. Now, again, this does not make sense. If he considered the information to be disregardable, why do you have a ring light recording the man? Do you set up ring lights and good lighting to record every bit of disregardable information that comes across your desk? That does not add up. It does not add up. And in this case, as we keep iterating, this is not the same thing as Emailgate, where somebody else, where the parliamentarian made the statement. This is somebody else making that statement. And then when the whistleblower indicated to me that you are thinking that this might come from some government meeting, that it has nothing to do with any meeting of your government. This was a political party meeting, etc., etc., etc. Let me go to that piece. Inside of it too, it was interesting that Farley, during the presentation, steered clear of actually repeating the allegations. I don't know if anyone noted that. This article noted that, but I don't know how many of you noticed that. He steered clear of repeating the allegations that were made by the whistleblower, which is very interesting. It could nearly wonder if he's putting the whistleblower out on his own on a branch there. You see, something must be able to legally come out of this. Here's the reason something must come out of this. If it doesn't, this means there's precedent set that as long as I have connection with anyone inside of the Tobago house, I could record a video saying anything about anybody in this country. Because if you could say it about the Prime Minister and Commissioner of Police, you could say it about anything. The most slanderous of statements I want, I can make it up and give it to that person. They go into the house and they play it. And that's that. Really? So are you telling me there's that easy of a loophole? There's no recompense for someone who does that?
Nathan, between me and you,
yeah,
I honestly expected a greater response from the people of Tobago because Farley make a fool of them, right? And this is almost tantamount to creating what you call anarchy.
It is,
right? And people don't understand because I have no feeling left, right, about Robbie, Kamala, whatever. But you see, when you because of your own foolishness and selfishness try to bring a nation to the point of anarchy because you were caught with your hand in the cookie jar speaking out of turn and had the wrong people around you strategizing and planning, because I am an honest person. What do I mean like that? All politicians have those type of conversations to start with next time. Mm-hmm. The only difference is Farley conversations was recorded, and he reported himself to be a man of high integrity and honor. So man of God. So that very high contradiction of him was made public. Mm-hmm. So here what? I go fight the biggest bully, and then I go cry wolf.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually sounds a good bit like it. And as you spoke about anarchy, that shouldn't really be surprising though, because for me, a lot of what the TPP began saying as they became more comfortable in power a lot of it sounded anarchic. Like, I am not one generally for much bureaucracy. I don't like the state involved in too many things, but I understand that we live in a country where the state is already involved in a lot of things. And if you go outside of that rule, you are going into anarchy in the context of how our society is run. They were trying to do projects outside of the EMA's purview. They are calling themselves the government of Tobago. So in many ways, the TPP is trying to act like no institution, no level of hierarchy has any say on them. We say and do as we please. Ronnie, you're saying something there?
When you finish.
Yeah, I am finished making my point there. I am finished. So you could jump in if you had something to say.
So, night everybody.
Good night.
I was on the YouTube because I was praying. And so I did get to listen to part of Bush. What are you, master?
Yes.
Alright.
Very clear. Where you going though?
A few things, right? A few things that I have observed, and all you keep saying, oh, they're making food, that's a big one, yes. I don't think so, you know. I don't think so at all. Because people who I believed to have some form of, smarts about them, I think gate being recalled is not such a bad thing because we're wasting our money sending people to school because they have no sense. I have been on the ground. I've been hearing people. They are still on they listen. I don't have a problem with loyalists. I don't have a problem with people who they state with the whole chest who they support. I have no problem with that. I have a few friends like that. But one thing I've noticed over the years with my friends like that, they have all been able to say, nah, boy, this is too much. This is too much. My back can't take it. And say it publicly too, because if you support him publicly, you don't want people to believe that he's a fool. So when you condemn publicly too. I have yet to see any kind of condemnation in Tobago. As a matter of fact, they have doubled down on their support and their reasoning for support. So I, again, have not much to say on the matters I think they would forever support and stay in support, and we need to just be in our lanes, as they would say. Stay in your lane.
I do agree with that. I allow that statement to, so like if I'm having a conversation, I allow that statement so the conversation would go on. But in reality, especially if someone is attempting to throw me out of a discussion, so I have no interest in discussing anything further with you anyway, I'd allow you to know that that is my lane. You are fast and out of place to think that Tobago is your lane only. So ma'am, whoever is thinking that Tobago is your lane only, it would be your lane only when you pay for it by yourself. But the reality is that's not how Tobago runs. The reality is Tobago runs with the support of Trinidad. You could not like it, but you can't do anything about it. If you want to change that, you have to come to the parliament. You know where the parliament is? In Trinidad, the Red House. The parliament for Tobago. Even if there's special privilege to the members of the Tobago House of Assembly, you would have assembly privilege. You won't have parliamentary privilege because you aren't a parliamentarian. The parliament for Tobago's parliament is the Red House. In case Tobagonians are confused about that, Tobago's parliament is the Red House. That's where your parliamentary business goes on. What Dr. Rowley to say it like the Tobagonians, what Rowley does talk about in the parliament is your business, because he's the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He's your prime minister too. So yeah, you could in conversation attempt to say things like stay in your lane, but in reality it doesn't work because that is everyone's lane. I would like to see them attempt to, if there are arrests to be made, when you see people being walked out in handcuffs, run up to the police with TTPS written on them and say, oh, let's stay in your lane. You don't have no power in Tobago. Go and tell them that and see if they listen to you.
Well, I mean, clear, because, listen, as you were saying, the wonderful, lovely, beautiful wife of Dr. Raoul is a lawyer, right? I don't think you'll be talking out of turn as much as the Newcomb Green Falls Ripe Valley. You understand? So I am no grave supporter of them. But if I have to err on a side,
you know, I want to know though, Rani. I want to know who is their legal advisor. You notice?
That's a good question.
You notice nobody comes forward as that.
Because who would? And apparently he has a King's Counsel. What? You have a King's Counsel, and that is the advice you get in?
I also want to know if they are playing out a Trump handbook where they're looking for shock value to increase reach.
But that doesn't. If they're doing that, they are insane people. That has no bearing on Tobago politics. The United States is 360, 350 or 320, 300 and something million people. So shock value, there's penetrative benefit. You could penetrate a group that hasn't heard before, a group that doesn't generally. Tobago has what, 60,000 people?
60,000.
Everybody in Tobago already heard about the TPP. I believe personally, every Tobagonian has already cemented their opinion on the TPP. I don't think shock value is doing anything for you. That's why I was saying since last week. To me, this is my opinion as a political and as a amateur political analyst online here. I think what Mr. Augustine is doing there could only lose them support. There's no possibility it gains them support. That's my opinion. Every Tobagonian has heard about the TPP, has heard about Mr. Augustine, knows about the PNM, knows about the fallout with the PDP, knows about Duke and all of that. They know. I don't think there are many Tobagonians who are ignorant of all of this. There aren't many. And in all of this, I wonder, is there a Tobagonian who wasn't too favorable to Mr. Augustine before and would see something like this bit of theatrics and say to themselves, this has won me over? I just do not see it. The only possibility I see is that there was someone who was just on the edge of support. They were already losing their fervor. They already stopped drinking the Kool-Aid a couple weeks ago, and they recognize, hey, this Kool-Aid that you're drinking smelling kind of poisonous. So they already pulled back a little bit, and then this bit would have just thrown them out. So the only possibility I could see is losing supporters in this. So if it is shock value that they were going for in an attempt to get some new supporters out there, well, probably they have a strategist that is just way beyond me in understanding this, and they know way more than I could. Joseph Gibbs says some say secession is the only option. Secession, listen, I saw Mr. Devant Mirage. I think he's a doctor now, I'm not sure. Mr. Mirage is back around and he's talking, and a lot of what he says these days makes a lot of sense. He's speaking a lot more level-headed. But some people don't have a very long memory. I remember when he was one pushing the idea of Tobago leaving and maybe even joining, was it Grenada or Barbados? There was a scandal about that during the partnership era where he had some statements like that. And the reason is allegedly demographic. So that secession note, Mr. Joseph Gibbs, the only people secession benefits are Trinidadians who don't like Tobagonians. The only people that would benefit from Trinidad and Tobago separating, from Tobago seceding, are Trinidadians who don't like Tobagonians. Many Tobagonians seem 100% sure they would do so much better if they were to secede and do this on their own. Sometimes I wish there was like a save game kind of scene where you could give them the reins, like go ahead for 30 years and see what would happen while we play our regular save game. Let them crash Tobago and do their suicide mission on their own, and we keep our regular boat going ahead. Because listen, Tobago, as I regularly say, makes 200 million, spends 2 billion. Can you imagine attempting to run a country through that kind of difficulty? Going from making 2 billion to only making 200 million with a group like the TPP?
Enemies left, right, and center. You could imagine that.
Tobago would become Haiti-like in a record time.
And it's not just that, People don't understand that.
Take the national debt too.
International debt, we will have to pass on that. Tobago will have to then develop its own police service, its own regiment.
Yes.
All these kind of things that is fully entrenched. And a lot of people just like to speak because they doesn't understand the full reality of the situation, what it means for someone to succeed, succession. And I always tell people, any that peaceful majority that's not going to vote for that. So why you think I wouldn't vote for something because of some people are arrogant. And people is old enough to Tobago to know that there's a uniqueness that binds us together. Although at points we disagree, like a relationship, but it mustn't stop us from loving each other. We can dislike each other, but we must not stop loving each other. And I think at the end of the day, because I'm very passionate about when politicians try to take the electorate for fools and believe that we don't have the necessary cognitive ability to distinguish what is foolishness and pass it off as elegant orator skills, as Fali tried to do, because those things is very insulting. It's insulting to me, not just I'm a Trinidadian. I'm a Trinbagonian rather.
Yeah.
And the mere fact that he's able to say and give an orator statement without any facts, without proving anything, and then hiding it under the guise of whistleblower, of parliamentary privilege, and then when that was challenged, he further went on to say that the speaker has certain powers that which you choose to act upon that gives her the right to do so and to use her own discretion as the right as a speaker. It's very distasteful that when you deal with a young politician and you had a little bit of potential that cut short by your own policies.
Yeah.
But apart from the speaker, I don't know, I'm not living that long, but the only speaker I ever see talk so biased in my whole life, apart from this person in Tobago, is Wade Mac.
I was talking about Wade earlier, and I was saying, to me, I never even saw Mr. Mark this biased. Mr. Wade Mac used to at least attempt to look, at least in the song and the words, to look neutral, like, he's attempting a neutral facade, but she didn't even attempt to do it. Because the minority leader raised that this is a problem at the very onset of the videos. Yeah. And she shut him up. Yeah. Joseph says they say they have gas in trillions of dollars. We spoke about that last week, and probably every week we spoke about that too. But gas, even if they do, let's say they do have the gas, there's no technicality or anything in that. They do have it. Let's just see. If they do, getting the gas out of underneath the ocean bed into barrels to sell is not a 1 + 1 = 2 process. It's a pretty complicated thing, and to assume that it's just going to go along smoothly is one assumption. Also, like, if you believe that Tobago by itself would have trillions of dollars in gas, why doesn't Trinidad and Tobago right now, when we are joined, have access to those trillions of dollars of gas? Because, you know, right now, we're struggling to get more gas.
And we are struggling to get that. It's a Tobago struggle. Exactly.
We have trains in NGC that cannot be operational because we don't have the gas. They're drilling and some of the drills are coming up empty-handed. We don't have the gas. So if we don't have it as T and T, how is the 1T going to get the gas? Does Tobago, I wonder if Tobago, like maybe some Tobagonian fishermen went out there and they spotted some gas in some hidden nook in the Tobago waters and they were keeping it a secret, waiting for secession, so Tobago by itself would access that wealth, because that has to be it. Otherwise, it makes no sense. What's that?
But just now there you were talking about would vote for secession only Trinidadians who don't like Tobago.
I said who would benefit. I said who would benefit.
Yeah, sorry, who would benefit? Who would benefit? Who would benefit, right? I think a lot of people, and like talking to my friends who live in Trinidad, and they probably just come to Tobago to visit, they don't understand how difficult it is for a Trinidad, a Trinidad parting person. You hear that song? A Trinidad passing person, it is very hard in Tobago. Like, let me tell you, the difficulties I just have not smacking some of these people in the face. I just really want to know, because I don't know.
So are you saying that many Tobagonians are extremely xenophobic?
Of course, they're very tribalist. So when you do a song like them, or you are not like them, or you listen, it even extends to if you are from Tobago but you went away and study and come back and you don't think like them, you are not in the fold anymore. It has people in Tobago that never leave their village. You know how small Tobago is, and they never left the village.
I have no problems with Tobagonian being tribal, because human beings are tribal by nature, right?
Okay.
But when it comes to when we exist in a global community, and global community only makes sense when different tribes coming together for a common understanding and a common good. Because Tobago has been the footmat for Trinidad for a pretty long time, so they have a certain level of animosity to a certain extent that they have to prove themselves. And I have worked with some Tobagonians locally, I've worked with them internationally, and it's always Trinidad and Tobago, never Tobago and Trinidad. And they don't take that easy, because they believe that they are better than Trinidad from an educational standpoint. They believe that they are more cultural than us. They believe that they are the true descendants of whoever, whatever. Because I've seen it and I've seen it and I've worked with them, and I still, regardless of that, I have no hate in my heart for them, because they are the other side of the coin, where the other senior Tobagonians believe that here we are one country, we are one people. We must we must look for the commonality between us, so that we can come together.
This is my point. Who does say that in Tobago?
I have lived with some people in Tobago.
There are Tobagonians who say that, though, Ronnie. I have heard Tobagonians say that.
Well, let me just...
Tobago, and let me tell you something. They look forward to coming to Trinidad. They go to school across here. They love Trinidad. They dislike Tobago. They find Tobago slow. Own Tobagonians. So, just like how...
Let me finish what I was saying. Go ahead and finish what you're saying, and let me go back to my point.
But it's fine. You go right ahead. All I'm saying is that people are tribal by nature, And sometimes when you are brought up in a tribe, you kind of follow the way of the tribe until you learn better. That's all I was trying to say.
I believe that.
Right. So this is why I say, right? If you go, as I said, if you as a Tobago, when here you go to school here, primary, secondary, and then decide to university in Trinidad, and you come back to Tobago and say, well, you know, this is a better way to do the same thing. All of a sudden you excommunicate, you know, no longer in the tribe. I am telling you, as I am in the age group of people turning from university and talking masters and up, right? And not first masters and up. So obviously they're coming back with a higher level of education and most. So when they come back, they find it really hard to settle in because it's always, oh, she feels she is, she feels she is, she thinks she is. You understand? That kind of thing that's be going on. I am not just saying, and as I said before, when you live here as a Trinidad passing person, this is very difficult. I remember the week after PDP won their election, right? PDP won the election. I just fall down a whole flight of stairs on the boat. You understand? My ankles swollen. And I waiting to go by the ATM to take out some cash. I'm standing in the line and this woman will at me and let me know. She was keeping me in line, by the way. I was like, excuse, I was in line. This woman shut me down quickly and let me know that it is their time. What that sound like to you? And if we have to be tribal, they would not like it. Remember, Trinidad have the 1 point so much million, and they have the 60,000. If everybody decided to be tribal, it would not be fair to them. We are not as far as it seems. Trinidadians are less tribal than Tobagonians, right? Another thing that happened this last weekend, right? So last weekend was Capture the Flag. A few months ago, when they announced Capture the Flag, right? This was the first year that they allowed Trinidad schools to take part in it, right? Because it's a Tobago thing. One of my co-workers, the first thing she would say is, what's Trinidad schools doing here? This is a Tobago thing. Fine. It only had one school that made it from Trinidad, right? The school came, they went straight to the semi-finals. Not one person posted the score. There's Williams and all didn't post the score. I didn't know, and I'm even get kicked out. I don't know who to play. But from the first match, people who were not even in quarterfinals and things, they score big. They went live and all kind of thing. It is very clear what is going here. But people looking on from outside don't see it. And when we have to listen, I always said if we had to vote to separate Trinidad and Tobago, I would not vote. Right? I would say out of that vote. You know what my co-worker told me? I voted fast. I voted fast. Now we X that fast. Plenty Trinidadians are fed up. Especially when you live here. When you come on your vacation, somebody say the East Indians been saying this. They are obviously they just get the worst. Because not only are they tribalists, but some of them are very racist. You understand? Some of them are very racist, and it's very clear. That is when you treat the white people better because they assume that they have money and they're going to spend their money in Tobago. But plenty of the white people, they say that they're racist too. You understand? So it's on every end that they just rubbing people the wrong way. Plus, people are getting fed up. I have been living here for 3-4 years now. I've been living here for 4 years and I am exhausted.
And you were born in Tobago, right?
I was born here and I always am told I don't have a say. I shouldn't say why I don't belong because I moved to Trinidad when I was younger. I feel if I end up in some of them conversations, Tobagonians will have to fight me, because the kind of things I might say, it might hurt their feelings. You could watch me and tell me I don't have a say. I dare you. I dare you see me in Tobago and tell me I don't have a say in the business. What? How much taxes you all pay? Come on, man. And as you said, that kind of thing, it increases the friction and it doesn't help anybody. And
I would hope that many Tobagonians would understand that the friction increasing doesn't benefit you. As you're saying, many people seem not to understand that, and they welcome that friction. They run into it thinking that it may benefit them in somehow. That's just foolish. But as you're pointing out there, it's not just a simple tribalism or a simple racism per se, because as you pointed out, if you leave and come back with university education and attempt to tell them what to do, then you're outside the tribe too. And that's kind of the tenor I've heard many Tobagonians talk about. It's nearly like they're offensive because they're launching a counter-offensive, an offense that they feel is aimed at them, that most people do not have. Many Tobagonians think that Trinidadians think less of Tobago and Tobagonians than the average Trinidadian does. To me, I think a lot of the negative stereotypes for Tobagonians may actually more come from former Tobagonians living in Trinidad than from genuine Trinidadians. To me, I am a Trinidadian. I was born in Trinidad. I have no kind of linkage like that to Tobago, except that I am Trinbagonian. That's my land, to mind your business. But I don't have that kind of linkage. But the average Trinidadian doesn't think about a Tobagonian like that. Like Tobagonians are dunce or backward. How could we think like that? And A.N.R. Robinson was our prime minister and president. And for me, he seemed like probably the best of both. Like, where does that come from? Where I don't even know where that assumption comes from. There's a lot of people seem to assume that, and then they build up some resistance and offense in the defense because of that, so they're offended one time. While no one is thinking of you like that. But if you do treat people in that negative way, then you will not like the recompense coming from that. I was making that note when I spoke about, for example, the black community in sometimes some of those white majority countries, where sometimes that's why the technique of Martin Luther King Jr. worked so well. Non-violent civil disobedience. You see, you need the white people, the majority, to be on your side. If you are a black person in the minority and you want to jump up and say, well, we were kings, and we were the kings of this, and y'all Europeans were in caves and messing in old hole in the ground when we came and taught y'all should be bowing at our feet. Okay, even if you do believe that, you are 13% of the population, they are 70% of the population. How are you going to enact such a thing? Like, you have to be real. Even when some Tobagonians talk about secession like that, they could only talk about that in this kind of modern world context. In the older world context, you secede and Barbados was raiding you and taking your land for themselves. Because if you secede, you don't have a military. You may barely even have a police force. How many police do you think that may be born Tobagonian? They're born Tobagonian. They may even work in Tobago. If Tobago decides to secede, and the TTPS has to become the TPS and then the next TPS. But the next TPS is now forming, and their budget must be just a fraction of the $200 million. So the budget going to be scarce. How many officers you think born Tobagonian, if they get the option, you could now be one of the first brand new Tobago police for $1,200 a month? Now, we now starting, so it's a struggle for loyalty, for patriotism, Tobago brother. Do you think he'll stay there or come to Trinidad and be a police on his same salary? Like, come on now, man. Let's be realistic on that. Hey, Positive Radiation, good night, brother. We were asking, why does it seem that so many Tobagonians have a strong level of xenophobia? A strong level of xenophobia to such an extent where many Trinidadians who spend elongated periods of time in Tobago, they feel that nearly racism. that you feel the outsider feel. You feel like many people around you don't like you there and they aren't welcome. What history is that positive radiation? What history is that? And we're talking about people who are 30, 40 years old. What history did they experience that caused them to be like that? So from 1960 or 70 till now, what happened in that period of time that caused this level of animosity? Because I was saying, as a Trinidadian, I could tell you there is not that level of animosity towards Tobagonian. A Tobagonian in Trinidad is just a Trini. Like, the most you might call him is Bago Boy. That's the most. Hey, Bago Boy, boy. Like, but they aren't treated any differently. When Anna Robinson and Dr. Williams had a falling out, this is what I was told. Oh. So, this is animosity from the founding fathers. This is founding fathers' animosity then. So, when Robbie and Williams had their falling out, it was, as it were, a proverbial fallout of Trinidad and Tobago. Well, it seems like Dr. Williams didn't pass down his fallout as effectively as Mr. Robinson did. Or maybe he didn't pass it down, but it was taken up on his behalf. Because I could tell you, as I was just saying, the animosity seems a lot more one way than the other. It does seem. I experienced the outsider feeling in Trinidad. Really? Like how you mean? Like what kind of outsider feeling you mean? Like people treat you lesser than? They look at you like in an odd way?
Somebody doesn't ask you to make smudge and thing for them. You know, whenever one of my coworkers going to Trinidad, you know what they say? Yeah, boy, I'm going down on your ends on the war side. I go in the war. It's what? Like I wish a bullet would shoot you. Sorry, not really. Because come on, what is that? You know what is that? That's horrible. That's real bad. Like if somebody come, like let me say a Jamaican, talking, and them tell me, yeah, I going home for a few weeks, and I go in by them, and like, hey boy, I go in by you in a few weeks. We can buy a bulletproof vest. Like, bruh, what? Like, that is so ridiculous, and you know, so one thing I have noticed, right? Trinidadians is obviously like Trinidadians because they just always come and there's litter and they just do this and they talk down to us. I'm like, right? Great. Problem. I understand that. I know when I go in a beach, when I see litter on the beach, I could tell it's a Trinidadian on the beach. Understand? Because they don't litter. But guess what? When you go on Maracas Beach, it is litter there too. It's not to say like they don't litter in their own home. And they only come into litter in yours. You understand? I can understand.
So Trinis are equal opportunity nasty people. They are equal opportunity nasty people. It's not like they wait to be nasty in Tobago. They're just generally nasty.
No, they just nasty. It's not like they put it on you. You understand? I find it's like they have a takeover attitude. Take over in what way, bro? What are they taking over? Taking over their home? Isn't Trinidad and Tobago one place? I don't understand why it's taking over.
That is why we 12-0 happened. You mean the PNM 12-0? I think I lost connection there with what you mean by that. How the Trinis have the takeover attitude, which is why the 12-0 happened. Wasn't it Tobagonians voted for the 12-0?
When TOP was going up, this is what he was explaining to me before. When TOP was going up, apparently it seemed like he was moving in and encroaching on Tobago's space and lands and whatever. So that's why they voted out TOP, because they didn't want TOP to give UNC access to Tobago. But
well, in that case, there is some historical reality to that, because I don't know if you remember Hilton Sandy was his name, I think Hilton, and he made the oh gosh, The ship, the Calcutta ship. Right. So if it's that you're talking about in that context, well, then you aren't talking that, if we're being honest there, that statement was not a Trinidadian based statement.
No.
If we're being honest, the worry there wasn't Trinidadians coming to take over. If we want to be honest about it here. It wasn't that when he said, he didn't say the panorama coming full of Trinis to take over. He didn't say that Trinidad going to empty into Tobago. He said the Calcutta ship. Now, there's no port in Trinidad leaving from Calcutta. Calcutta in Trinidad is in the middle of Freeport. That's landlocked. So there is no ship that could leave from Calcutta in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, I don't need to read and spell, I presume, any further. It was not a Trinidadian taking over statement.
No.
And in that case, then, to me, you could tell me that that's why PNM would have loyalty in Tobago, because that is a PNM technique. I would willingly say that. I see it all the time. The PNM regularly in Tobago, the PNM likes to almost always frame it as we are the PNM and any other party than us is a proxy for the UNC. And any other party than us would allow the UNC to move in. That's the PNM strategy to a great deal in Tobago. So I don't think that's a Trinidadian taking over thing. And if that was the case, then the PDP was supposed to lose, because that was the strategy used again with the PDP. There was a clear link made between Watson Duke and the UNC, and the Tobagonians seem not to be bothered about that UNC Duke link. So
No,
I don't buy that. I don't buy that takeover idea.
No, you're misunderstanding. They will not vote. If PDP decides to go for general election, they will not vote for them. Because, as you said before, if you don't vote for them, you're really voting for a proxy for the UNC.
But
no other national party is up.
Right. But so, he said the 12-0. He said the 12-0, which was a THA election. That was not general election. The 12-0 was a THA election. So if the THA election could be affected by this worry of the takeoverism of Indian Trinidadians, let's say it plainly, the Calcutta ship reference, if that could have worked for the 12-0, how come it didn't work for the, what was it, 14-1 or what it was last? How come it didn't work there? Because, as I said, that link was clearly made. But again, it didn't work. So I don't actually buy that it's really the Trinidad and Tobago takeover affair. I could believe that politicians could, there were no clear, come on, positive radiation. Really? Like, you want me to go back to the election 2 years ago and find back those political ads that showed the linkages, that showed the allegations of linkage? Really?
Let's show him the avocado. The avocado.
The bank has an agenda. He was part of the propaganda money being spent.
But positive. It's what I'm saying is, all the time it was allegations. The Calcutta ship reference was an allegation also. And here's the strange thing: the guy who led the group that was being touted as bringing across the Calcutta ship, he is in the TPP. So what are you telling me? How could there not be a linkage when the same man who was part of who was the leader of the TOP is in the TPP? The woman who was right there alongside him, who was in the TOP, is now in the TPP. The pastor man who was right there on his side alongside him in the TOP is now in the TPP. Like, come on, man. Let's be reasonable. if you are saying that the allegations of the Calcutta ship is what gave the 12-0 back then, how come allegations of Calcutta ship with the same participants didn't work this time? I'm not buying that Trinis are taking over. I could buy that a racial scare could be made. But if a racial scare could be made, it's not made on merit of Trinidadians taking over. It's made on the merit of knowing that Tobagonians might be racist. You could make that racial scare because you're playing on the knowledge of racial grievance inside of Tobago. But this time what happened is the racial grievance was conquered by another grievance, the grievance against Trinidadians. That's what Duke played on. When Duke said that we don't want no what was the word? We don't want no damn self-governance. It's secession. And the crowd cheered. He played on that division. And that's how it happened this time. How many times Tobago changed hands in what way? You mean colonial times? You mean political parties changed hands in what way do you mean exactly? So
But what would that have to do with anything?
33 times, okay?
In what way?
What do you mean by that? Colonial, governor, political party. What do you mean by that?
He's talking about the assembly.
The assembly?
What? There were 33 assembly elections already?
I mean, how could it be? And PNM was there for 21 years?
I'm trying to positive you could jump in on a bro. Don't be a stranger. I'm not understanding exactly what you mean there. 33 times in what sense?
Probably in all of its existence.
But even that, I'm trying to think. The Colanders, the Dutch, the French, the English, even that's only 4. Anybody comes into Tobago with a takeover attitude gets blocked. Okay. Well, first off, you didn't block the Germans that owning acres all over Tobago, so ease me up with that talk. There are foreigners owning the majority of the land. If it's not THA owned, it's foreigner owned. So ease me up with that talk. That's BS. You're worried about the Trinis taking over, but the Germans are given free rein apparently. So, okay. But what are you talking about 33 times? Like Tobago was the most conquered land on this planet. I don't. Tobagonians sold the land. Positive radiation. Tobagonians sold the land. That's who sold the land. Tobagonians.
Tobagonians had their lands, right? Up to this day, Tobagonians, grandmother die and leave land for them, selling their land. And you know something? They selling it to foreigners. You know what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Tobagonians wouldn't even be able to afford to live in Tobago. They would be like Hawaii. Begging people not to buy land in Hawaii. That's how it's gonna be because they constantly there's a law stating that foreigners are not supposed to own land in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Or not supposed to buy land in Trinidad and Tobago now, right? And you know what I'm doing? The foreigners and they're doing? They're linking up with some local person, don't know nothing about money, offering them a sum, and they will buy the land with them, but they're not owning the land. I don't even understand how that works because if it was me, a smart girl like me, a tricky daddy like me, I would have owned your land, I would have taken your money too.
Positive radiation. I find it strange that you don't want to come up and talk about these things. I have land to lease, let them check me. Like I want to know the 33 times that Tobago changed hands. If that is true or if that is just propaganda that is carried on to build up this tribalism inside of Tobago. Hey, 33 times they take over Tobago, you know. They take over we land 33 times, you know, and they come in to do it again. They come in to do it again. Make sure them Trinis don't come in. Make sure them Trinis don't come in. And the same person that riling you up with that nonsense talk about 33 times and make sure they don't come and take over, selling out your land behind your back. That's the sad thing when you're so caught up in politics. You know, they're pointing you at the enemy. Look, that's the enemy, you know. That's the enemy, you know. And they're bringing in somebody to stab you behind your back because you're so there propping up this foolish politician above you. It's ridiculous, really. It's ridiculous. I would like to know, show me something hard. Show me something real where you see Trinis coming to take over Tobago. The 33 times that Tobago changed hands. Between who?
We're probably talking about the entirety of Tobago history, from even in the entirety of their history.
But Rome, I can't even understand that with the entirety of their history. They went through what? 4 European hands?
Yeah, the Dutch, the French,
the Colanders, and then probably the English.
The British.
But who else? If we didn't want y'all, we would have put Visine in y'all water. Ha!
I mean, y'all.
Funny.
You know what's funny? The head person of the TRHA.
Yes.
Is the one who's paid to provide to Trinidad and water. I would never go to to that hospital in Tobago. I would never fly me to Trinidad when I get sick. Please, I beg. Beg. I mean, anyway, they would have to fly me because none of the machines work. And they never have any specialists. Imagine they have a neurologist come into the hospital when it was day before yesterday or yesterday. That person comes once a year.
Listen, remember, I was in Tobago not too long ago, Rooney, and I was doing some work in some medical stuff there, and I was hearing some people talk about some of the stuff that's going on. And from what I was saying, from Tobagonians inside there, they were saying a lot of the faults there is just management. That the Tobago culture of laid back doesn't suit well for key critical management, and that's what is good. Laid back and friendship, laid back and nepotism is killing a lot of that. That's what I heard from Tobagonians. I don't get healthcare done in Tobago. I don't know, but that's what they were saying. It doesn't function well because of the laid back attitude and nepotism. Tony says Tobago is lost because of the self, because they don't love their own color. Wow, okay. RL says a lot of culture here lacks a lot of professionalism. Well, I guess that's what I was speaking about there. And how positive is responding there? Like, if we don't want y'all, we would have put Visine in the water. I hope you're joking. But when you see responses like that, those responses aren't conducive to improvement, because you can't look at yourself with a critical eye. So if somebody says that Trinidadians litter a lot, and my thing is to try and defend that first up instead of look at ourselves with a critical eye, then that's how you don't fix the littering problem. If you are hearing from people who visit your island, you are attempting to be a tourist island, but many tourists feel the shade and the heat. How do you deal with that? By telling them, if we didn't want you, we'd have put Visine in your water? I would like to know, where are the Trinidadians taking over? Where are they taking over? How?
He's not like a friend of family, because he just making ironic statements all over the place without any evidence. We've been asking for explanation on what the 33 times of being in different hands mean. And it's like, okay, I understand you want to say something, but when you're having a discourse at this level, you should be able to provide at least a bit of evidence or a bit of facts, or at least a trend of thought as to actually what you're speaking about, and that's so that we could follow. Because it's just like I'm feeling like positive radiation is just pelting shit against the wall and hoping something sticks.
Why is the sun for BlackRock still on a badge in Trinidad? I don't know. And I spoke about this before. Sometimes when I'm doing the Tobago talks, I hear some of the things that Tobagonians complain about that they aren't getting from Trinidad. You are right to complain about it because it's a government service you're supposed to be getting and it's failing. Great. Well, not great. Bad. Good complaint. But taking it personal is where it crosses the line. Because here's the thing. We don't get good government service in Trinidad either. Literally in front of my house is a pothole for years now. In front my house. And it can't be fixed. They did a box drain and they promised they were going to come to continue it. I think that started some election season. Just one of the election seasons, the box drain started. Where the box drain reached when election was called, it continued no further. It's literally stopped. You could see concrete here, blocks, steel jutting out into mud and water. Trinidad. I mean, it's a matter of poor governance in general. It's not something personal against Tobago. That's not a personal Tobago slight. It's poor governance in the country of Trinidad and Tobago. Like, do you think that Dr. Rowley, who is a Tobagonian, owns property in Tobago, just hates Tobago? You know, when Dr. Rowley moved over to Trinidad and he bought that property in West Moorings, he just grew a hate for Tobago. His own farm in Tobago, the property that he bought, he hates Tobago. What can two MPs do? Well, I would suppose they would do just as much as my two MPs for Couva do. I live in Couva North and Couva South. There are two MPs. I would believe that the population in Couva North and Couva South might be about 60,000 to probably more. Couva proper more, way more. And we have just two MPs, just like y'all. Same thing. We don't have the assemblymen though. I wish we did. I wish we had the Couva House of Assembly, but we don't. We just have two MPs. Tobagonians never voted for him. For who? Dr. Rowley? Well, nobody votes for the Prime Minister. The only person that voted for Dr. Rowley were the constituents of Diego Martin West, is he? That's the only person that votes for the Prime Minister. You have to understand the Westminster parliamentary system. We vote for the MPs. If you voted for a PNM MP during the last election, it's understood that MP is going to support the PNM's political leader. So, okay, you didn't vote for him, but if you voted for a PNM MP, well, that's how the election works. I still don't get what you're saying there. Do you think that the Tobagonian Prime Minister of the country of Trinidad and Tobago woke up one day with hate in his heart for Tobago? He just hated Tobago to its core? Like, really? These things don't even make sense. The arguments don't make sense. And that's why I know that they come from an emotional point of view. They come from an emotional point of view because they so obviously don't make sense. And as Rome said about pelting shot against the wall and seeing what sticks, it could nearly seem like that because the arguments are coming sporadic from so many different sides because there isn't a logical basis. You aren't building the argument from a logical basis. Okay, so Tobago was switched between hands 33 times. The 33 times were X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., etc., etc. And because of these times when they murdered so much of the population and they held this much of the population in captivity and then they took away this much to indentureship, so now Tobago is worried about outsiders coming in. And then Trinidad conquered Tobago with its military and then, like, explain it, build it logically with a logical basis. He is Diego MP, yes, but he's also the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Positive Radiation, you're a man that regularly talks about the law and the Constitution and stuff. You should understand this. He is the MP of Diego Martin, while simultaneously being your Prime Minister too. You could not like him if you want. He is still your Prime Minister. Still. You could not like him. But what you're saying there is demonstrably false. And what you're doing, the further you go down this line, it's similarly with your leader, Mr. Farley Augustine. The further he goes down the emotive line, emotional reasoning, things that don't add up logically, yes, he may rile up his support base. He may get them more emotional and in tune emotionally with him. But he will distance any sound thinker from him.
Any right thinker that have any respect for any sort of democracy, because this is our democracy. This is not Tobago democracy. And that's what people, and a lot of people who are getting emotionally involved and then have the audacity to say to me, well, stay in my lane because this is Tobago politics. No, sir, this is our democracy. And as last as we check, one vote, one say. You may not agree with it, but I'm entitled to my opinion.
Positive. It's Trinidad and Tobago. Do something about it. The Prime Minister is your Prime Minister. Do something about it. I could pick up myself with no passport, no visa, jump on the plane, go over to Tobago, and go there freely. And you and no Tobagonian can do anything about it. He is your Prime Minister. You could go to sleep crying. You could put up the picture of Farley in your room with a garland around it. And your Prime Minister, when you wake up the next day with the garland Farley in your room, is still going to be Dr. Rowley. So, like, getting this emotional about Trinidadians being part of your country doesn't change anything. It just makes you emotional. And the ultimate loser in this is the person who gets emotional. Yeah, you could tell Trinis you go and throw Visine in the water. You could try and insult Trinis when they come. You could throw shade but the Trinis would go back home. You are the one who needs them to come back for the tourism. The reality is Bago has no say. That's not what I said. Bago has a say as any other part of the country does. I have as much say as the Tobagonians do. What happens is that y'all want to be more important than me. Me as a person, as a Trinbagonian living in Trinidad, I must have less of a say in the affairs of Trinidad and Tobago than a Tobagonian. You must have more say than me. You must take more money than me. 39-2. That's not how our parliament is split, sir. Our parliament is 41 seats. There's no 39-2 split in our parliament. The Tobagonian seats don't sit separately from the Trinidadian seats because the Shagona seats don't sit separately from the rest of seats. You know what this song's like? This is like Long Island. In the United States, they have Long Island, which is an island. Long Island is an island, but it's part of the United States. You know what? The US is biased. Long Island should separate from, like, this song's so ridiculous to me.
Let me refer to positive radiation. 39-2, that is equal to the amount of say you should have. Because your say is proportional to your demographic representation. So you cannot have two seats and it cancel out the other 39 seats of the other individuals. So that's why it's a majority rule situation. So when your argument is from a mathematical perspective is 39-2, just by 39 being greater than 2 should tell you why the share should be greater.
And you know, it is not, the divide is not 39-2. The divide is between PNM and UNC. And the two seats of Tobago are in governance. There are Tobagonians, when cabinet meets, there are Tobagonians that sit down there in the cabinet and decide the decisions of the entire country. Like, if you take a ratio of the amount of Tobagonians in the cabinet to Trinidadians, they are overrepresented.
And even the person who has the greatest say in Trinidad politics today is a proud Tobagonian.
Like, if you wanted proportional representation inside this business, 60,000 compared to 1.3 million, what's that ratio like? What's that ratio like?
Let me see.
I'm trying to get that ratio there. All right, 60,000 to 1,300,000.
25-1. me some maths off the head.
65 to 3. So, to every 65 Trinis, there are supposed to be 3 Tobagonians. How many Tobagonians are in the current cabinet? At least 3 that I know of. I wouldn't doubt there are more that you just mightn't be totally sure about as yet. But at least 3. So there are supposed to be 65 Trinis in the cabinet to compare with that. And if we're talking proportional to the 3 Tobagonians, there are supposed to be 65 Trinis. There are not 65 Trinis in the cabinet. Y'all are overrepresented positive radiation. Should we, as Trinis now, start to complain about that? There are too many Tobagonians in the Trinidad and Tobago Parliament, you know. They're going to buy us this thing for Tobago. There are too many Tobagonians there. Should that be the complaint now? Really? Positive radiation says, so we should expand the island. How are you going to do that? So what you recommend? I recommend that Tobagonians bat in their crease and understand where their crease is and understand that this is how governance is done and understand that if you secede, you are going to turn your country into a hellscape. That's my recommendation. Because the reality is you are not given a raw deal. You are not given a raw deal in the sum of what Trinidad and Tobago is. The share that you get isn't an unfair share. You do not get the pity share and Trinidadians are just dominating over Tobagonians and giving us the pity share. That is not true. What you are pursuing is an advantageous share. What you want is an advantageous share of the pie. And if you get an advantageous share, the nature of this thing is it is a zero-sum game. If Tobago gets more, then Trinidadians in Trinidad, Trinbagonians in Trinidad would get less. That is the reality of this. It is a zero-sum game. What you want is an unfair share of the pie, and you don't get that. You don't deserve that. That is my recommendation. Where is our crease? Your crease is the Tobago House of Assembly that has the Tobago House of Assembly Act to run it, which runs underneath the Parliament of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and you are part of a unitary state, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the crease. What share we should get? Well, that was determined. They had the percentage written down. I can't remember the exact percent, but it's something between a certain amount. That's,
I think 6% of the national budget is allotted to Tobago through the Assembly Act.
Nathan, no all-inclusive packages for you in Tobago. No. I would hope that Tobagonians hearing logical talk wouldn't try to victimize somebody based on that. And if I go to Tobago and someone wants to speak to me on that grounds, well, I would enjoy such a conversation. So by all means. What about your city and borough corporations? What do you mean, what about them? In what way? What about them? How? What about them? How? I don't know what you're asking about them. What about them in specifically what way? What share should they get? In terms of should, I think personally, I think when they're talking about local government reform, we should be reforming local governments to run much more similarly to the THA and have a similar kind of arrangement where there might be a percentage. But I could move away from a percentage if they're talking about property tax. I could go along with the property tax for an area be the budget to a large extent of that area. The area taxes and builds up based on their tax. You know, I might love that for Tobago, in fact.
So you're talking about Tobago only brings in 200 million in terms of revenue, and the expenditure is $2 billion. So then they will be operated as a huge, almost a 1.8 billion deficit Tobago will operate at every year, which adds with over a 5-year period almost an 8.9 deficit to the national budget that we taxpayers will have to therefore take up.
Yes, yes, yeah. I am aware. I am aware. But the idea of property tax, to me, property tax only makes sense in a local government context. Like, I am willing to pay a tax on the area, on the spot of dirt I live on, if it goes towards things that upgrade the area around this spot of dirt that I live on. Positive radiation, I agree, and we have spoken about this before, and I think Tobago should increase their private sector, but unfortunately the TPP came in with the promise that that's going to be the direction they headed in, and to me it seems like the TPP is actually shrinking the private sector further in Tobago and encompassing more things into the assembly control. So
Nathan, my thing is with a population of 60,000 and with that same population of 60,000 into 35,000 is actually able to contribute to the private sector, right? So how big you really expect Tobago sector to be based on the population size?
well, it's according to what kind of private sector you're aiming at. Because the idea of Tobago was to be tourism focused. So although the living population of Tobago would be 60,000, there is supposed to be an influx population constantly of maybe 40,000+ people on the island. So you're supposed to have that movement that is supposed to be able to facilitate a private sector. The next thing is, I think there could be a private sector in between 20 people. There could be a completely private sector where you have closed trade in between 20 people. It's just that you would have to develop based on that. The problem is Tobago was developed with the idea that they would get the extras from the Trinidad and Tobago coffers, which let me say this one time in case anyone misunderstands what I say. I don't have a problem with Tobago getting the 2 billion, although they produce 200 million. In the context of the unitary state of Trinidad and Tobago, I don't have a problem with that, because that goes towards the upkeep and benefit of this beautiful island jewel of Tobago. And if as a state we could pay to keep this place serene, even if it costs more than it makes, I don't have a problem with that. That's like Alaska in the United States. A lot of Alaska is reserved. They allow no kind of economic activity there. But Alaska has significant stores of natural resources. I could understand an argument to protect Alaska as the United States. Why the United States could want to protect Alaska, although there is money in it, if you protect it to remain this pristine resource. So I could understand Tobago in that context. But the problem happens when, okay, we're trying to specialize as a unitary state now. We have different areas specialized in different things. You go down to Point Lisas, there's the industrial estate. You go up to Port of Spain, it's supposed to be an economic commercial hub. You go to Shoguanas, it's supposed to be for shopping, that commerce exclusively. And you go over to Tobago, it's supposed to be that serene kind of unspoiled slow motion vibe. But now we're having the problem, Tobago doesn't want to play its role. Tobago decides, okay, I do not like being a foot. This is all a human body. We're a human body. I am the foot. I don't like being the foot. People stand up on me too much. I want to be the mouth. I find the mouth gets a lot of attention. They brush his teeth twice per day. I fed up of this foot business. Well, in that case, that's when I start to feel like, okay, well, then we might have a problem paying the extra. Because if we were paying as a country, when I say we, I'm not talking Trinidadians, I'm talking Trinbagonians as a country. When Trinidad is the mouth, lol. Yeah, I'm talking Trinbago as a country, as a unitary state. If as a state we're paying extra for Tobago to remain like that, but Tobago doesn't want to remain like that, then maybe we shouldn't be paying that extra.
Because when you have people who don't understand the geography, as well as the topology of Tobago, where it's situated, why it's such a serene place, and they feel that Tobago should be a small developed state that has all the amenities of a full functional state, then we have a serious problem. Because it takes years, it takes expertise, it takes a certain level of developmental drive to reach that stage. And Tobago, as Nathan correctly said, has states where it is developed, and it has always has that serene natural habitat that they're supposed to bank on and be more a vacation like island. But what they don't like that they don't have no natural resources. When I mean natural resources, we're talking about the hydrocarbon here. So they don't like that Tobago is not considered a hydrocarbon producer, and it's only Trinidad, and it's only this. But your body could only work in unison when all its parts function properly.
Yeah, agreed.
And we keep making we keep spending money in Tobago that is not directed as developing the eco and the fauna of Tobago. We keep trying to force economy when we already have those economy exist in Trinidad and Tobago, but we want we own in Tobago because Trinidad might get up one day and block us.
Yeah. Well, we're looking to head to a close there, so y'all could formulate your final statements there. And I understand that. And I understand don't get me wrong, Tobagonians, I understand the dilemma. It's a unique dilemma. So, if as a full state we want to specialize Tobago into tourism, but you were born in Tobago. When you were born, you didn't decide, no one asked you if you want to live in a tourism specialist country. Maybe you want to study something, you're not interested in this, you want to do something else. And that's the only thing there is to do on Tobago. It could seem kind of unfair that, okay, you're going to tell a Tobagonian now, if you want to do something other than tourism, well, you're going to have to move to Trinidad. That could seem kind of unfair. But to me, in understanding, in trying to get the best out of our unitary state, that seems to be how we should be thinking. If you want to go into oil and gas business, maybe you should go live Roystonia or Couva and environs, or maybe even Point. If you want to do tourism, maybe you should look for an apartment in Tobago or see if you could buy some land. You know, we have different areas that have different specialties. To try, as Rome rightfully said, to try and make Tobago into a full industrial powerhouse, I could understand the appeal for that, but I don't think that would work, that would redound to benefit to the entire country. How profitable is tourism? Very profitable. It's just if you could utilize it as such. It is very profitable. Many countries survive and make a lot of money on tourism. Now, if you're looking at oil and gas money, it is not as profitable as oil and gas, but nearly nothing is as profitable as oil and gas. Don't let oil and gas fool us into believing that's the standard for the economy, really and truly. Humans have been scraping out an existence on this planet for quite some time now. That's not where profitability is at. If people want to get this, they pay for it and you make a profit off of it, it's profitable. And tourism is profitable like that. Oil and gas dying out, yeah, they've been saying that, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I think any country that could produce effectively oil and gas is going to remain wealthy for the foreseeable future. For the attainable foreseeable future. There aren't enough rare earth minerals to do what they want to do with electricals. Although I heard, for those of you into that kind of science, there is breaking news in the science field that they recently were able, allegedly, in a study to discover a superconductor that was able to work at room temperature. Now that's very important because superconductors are used in nearly all high electrical usages, but they generally generate a very massive amount of heat. If you could get them to not to be used to work at room temperature, well then That blows a lot of things out the water. Anyway, that's on a whole other topic other than Tobago. People, what's your closing statements, Roni and Rome? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So Rome could have the final say. Today, I have not much to say about that. I just would like Mindful Life to have a wonderful night. Because I say she prayed she will lose. That's why she's not coming.
No, tell her it's not like that.
It's not a competition, nothing. Right? If she feels big money, if she feels money to having this, I gotta help she. Anyway, I'll enjoy the night.
My final statement, must love each other in our differences.
Correct. Right.
Wonderful.
Well, great final statement. Positive, wait, positive. Your lady friend. Is that Trini?
His girlfriend. Don't just dig into that. That's his girlfriend.
The girl is a lady. What do you mean?
It's his girlfriend.
But it's not a girl, it's a lady. But boy, you trying to put positive in what kind of position you putting positive in? It's a young lady. So it's his lady friend. Ay! We catch him. Earlier, we catch him. He gone. All this Tobago talk dead just now. We done catch him. We already caught him. Don't worry. Positive. That talk dead. Each child will be a Trini too. Alright people, it's a love. I love Tobago. I really love Tobago. I love my country, in fact. I really do enjoy living in this country, other than the crime situation in the country. So I hope you guys were educated, informed, or entertained. That's all I have for now. I doing like Robbie. I hope you guys will tune in next for the next Mindful live session, which is going to be tomorrow evening for Thursday Talks, where we come and we just vibes. We talk about whatever topic is in the chat. So see you guys tomorrow. Until then, peace.